Yo guys, I hope you're doing amazing. I know, yeah, I know. It's a different setup. Everything's different. It looks much different. I probably look really good actually. I'm gonna do some of the most requested tutorials, and in today's video I'm going to cover this text bubble animation that you guys can use for so many different purposes. And what I do in this video you can use for a bunch of other effects as well. So I hope you guys really enjoy this tutorial. And let's get into it. Also, if you're not trying to follow step by step, you can just download the project file in the description for $2.
Back home, I'm no president, I'm Obama. Ay. I condone the drama. I tone down Madonna. Do you need pajamas? Stay in the night.
Alright, I just opened After Effects, and this is how I lay out my projects. So I just have the main folders with what we need. So first, I'm just gonna make a new composition, and we'll call this main comp, and with 1920 by 1080, and we'll make this 30 frames per second and like 20 seconds, 30 seconds. I'm gonna put that main comp under the main comps folder so that we're organized, and we want to have a text message conversation that's essentially just gonna be in this composition and animates down as each text bubble appears. So in order to do that, we have to have a composition with a height that is much more than this composition. So you'll see what I mean. So first I'm gonna right click and create a new solid, and we're gonna make this white because this is gonna be the background of the message conversation. So we have that white solid, we're gonna pre-compose it and move all attributes to the composition and call this bubbles conversation. Now we can open up this composition and we just have this white solid. So we need to adjust the settings of this composition because it's not the right dimensions. So we're gonna click Control K to take out our properties, and we're going to make the height much more. So like you can do this ×5, or doesn't even matter what it is, as long as it's 1920 by something that is a really high height, and then click OK. And now we have our full conversation composition here. But our white solid is oddly shaped, so we have to click Control-Shift-Y and make the comp size. So that will take out your properties for the white solid and then make sure that it is the same height as the composition. So now we're gonna scroll up to the top here, and this is when we're gonna do the fun part, which is just make the text message bubbles. I got so many questions on how to do this, and it really just comes down to exactly how you would think you would do it. So let's click Control T to take out our text and just type out whatever you wanna say. So I'll just make a message right there, and then we have to go into our character tab to take out the properties for this. And let's make that Helvetica new. This is the font that Apple uses. I'll leave a link in the description below. It'll probably look the best, but it doesn't really matter. So you type out whatever you want your first text to be, and then you're gonna right click on it and pre-compose. And I'm just gonna name this bubble 1 so that we're super organized. And now let's open up this composition here. So as you can see, we have a random piece of text. So this is good. Move it towards the center. And to keep this really organized, I'm going to click this button over here and just draw a box over this text message bubble. And now we're gonna go up to composition and crop comp to region of interest. And now we can just totally create our message bubble right here. Now this composition is important because we're gonna be duplicating it as the basis for the other bubbles. Let's just line this up. We can shrink it down a little bit. And now with nothing selected, we're gonna create a new shape layer by clicking Q. Or you can click this rectangle button and then go to rounded rectangle tool and just draw out a text bubble. This is on some Android type shit. So once you draw out that bubble, we're just gonna get rid of the stroke because that looks, and make that like a light blue for the text bubble. And then when you've drawn that out, go to your rectangle under your shape layer properties, rectangle path, and increase the roundness over here. And now we're gonna rename this bubble main and put it below the text. And just make sure this looks good. I'm gonna double click on this text and just get rid of the stroke so that it's all white, and then just increase the size a little bit. So that looks really good. Then we're gonna click G with nothing selected and make a new shape layer, just so we can add like a tail to this text bubble. And then just literally, I just drew a tail on the end of this bubble, and you can keep playing around with that. And then using the pen tool G, just arrange these dots. And I'm gonna hold Alt and then drag this dot to make it look a little better, because I need to individually affect that. So that's the text bubble, and it's looking all right. Just adjust it a little bit. All right, that's looking great. Now we're gonna rename that layer to bubble tail. And I'm gonna click Control K and just increase the height of this composition because it's just a little weird. Like, I just need to adjust the height. So now we have this in the center and the tail at the bottom. We're just adjusting that with G. And that's looking like a nice bubble. We can go back to our bubbles conversation, and you see that we have a bubble right in the center. So we're just gonna move that up, adjust it to be positioned wherever we want, and then click Y and just drag that towards the spot that the bubble starts, which is right on the tail. And what that's gonna do is make it so that when we scale this, it comes from the tail. And if we didn't do that and the anchor point was still in the middle and then we scaled it, it would start scaling from the center. So that's why the anchor point is really important to put right here, because when we animate this, we want it to animate this way. Now you're probably wondering, Shill, what is this, dude? This looks terrible. We have this long ass composition, and how could that possibly be of use to our final composition? Well, look guys, the current composition may have a very tall height, but if we go back to our main comp, we can actually adjust the position of that composition to make it so that it is perfect. We're gonna position that here. So we're gonna open up that bubble conversation, and now we just animate whatever text bubbles we want. So I'm gonna click on the scale stopwatch and set a keyframe, and I'm gonna make this like almost a second long. We're gonna start it at 0, and then it's gonna animate up to 100. Actually, it's gonna animate up to like 65. And this is where you really want to go back and forth between your main composition and your bubbles composition. We have this scale animation, and we're gonna easy ease that, select those keyframes and click F9, or you can right click and go to easy ease on keyframe assistant, and then we're gonna add motion blur over here, which if you can't see that, just toggle switches and modes and click that. And then we're gonna select those keyframes and go into the graph editor. And we're gonna use the value graph. So right click and go to your value graph. So in this value graph, a horizontal line is going to mean slow. And a vertical line that's very steep like this is gonna mean fast. And we want this text message bubble to just pop up really smoothly and fast, and then ease out slowly. So this is the kind of graph that we want. Steep in and then slow down. And then if you want, you can even go a little over so that it overshoots and then comes down a little bit in this subtle way. So like a graph like this means it's gonna get a little bigger before it slows down and gets to its to the scale that you want it to. But I think this is a good animation. Okay, great. Now that you have your first bubble, basically just copy that. So we're going to go into our compositions here, duplicate bubble 1 and make bubble 2. And then you can add whatever text you want for the recipient. Okay, so you write out your other text, and then if it's a little bigger than the bubble, then just, it's not a problem guys, because you can go to your main bubble and increase the size. And what I like to do is these are automatically linked, the X and the Y size. So if you unlink that, then you can just adjust the X. And I'm gonna take this tail bubble and move it over here, and along with the anchor point, I'm gonna move them together and just adjust this tail, put it on this side, and now we have a tail for the other text. And then just adjust the tail and the bubble to make sure that this looks good. And then you can click on your bubble main and go to the fill up here and click the color, and just make that like a gray like this, and that should be good. So you do that, and then we gotta click the fill for the tail bubble as well, which I'm just gonna eyedrop, pick that color. And now we have our other recipient. I think I need to make this a little bit wider. All right, great. So we have our bubble all set up for the recipient. Now we just have to put in bubble 2. And remember, we also have to take the anchor point and make sure it's at the tail. So click Y and just drag that anchor point dot to the bottom left so that it's right there. And then bring it up. And then, so the scale of the bubble 1 goes to 65. Also want to make sure we go to 65 for the scale on this one. And then just put the scale to 0 for the animation. And then you go to the graph editor and turn on motion blur. And just like we did for the first bubble, we do the same thing. Alright, so this is looking really good, and I'm also going to show you guys how to make the camera animation to follow these text bubbles and make sure everything looks really slick. Also, the project file for this entire video is in the description below. So if you want to spend just $2 to access the entire project file that I'm editing right now, then that is on my Payhip. The link is in the description below. Now what we can do to add a little bit of pizzazz is add like a profile picture at the top. So to do that, I'm going to click Control Y to make a new solid. Call this profile picture matte, and it can be whatever color you want it to be. I'm going to make it just magenta for now. Turn that off by clicking the eye, and because it's going to be used as a matte, so we're going to make a circle by clicking Q until we have a circle path, and then just put that at the top. And then once you have it lined up pretty well, you can re-enable that layer. And then you're just gonna choose whatever profile picture you want to use. Yeah, that's pretty fire. We're gonna have to use that one. So put that in and just move that into the same location as the profile picture matte circle. And once you have that set up, just click on that layer that you're using for your profile picture, click track matte and alpha matte. If you can't see this track matte option, just toggle switches and modes over here. And then you can scale it up however you want and it'll be inside of that circle. So that's how I do my profile pictures. Just want to add some name for them. And then select that and position it so that it is right under your profile picture. Now that is looking. Now when we go back to our main comp, we have this whole animation playing out. But as we can see here, we can't see the other messages. So we have to open up this composition and add some camera movement. And we can do this a bunch of different ways. You can add the camera movement just by like sliding this composition down as the text message bubbles pop up using just position keyframes. To make it look a little smoother, I'm gonna undo that, open up this composition, and Control-Alt-Y to make a new adjustment layer, and to rename that adjustment layer to be camera motion. And now if you have FX Console, you can just search it up, or you can go to Effect, Distort, and Transform. And then click on Position and Scale keyframes, and then click U. So now we have our keyframes set up to animate this text message animation. So we're gonna start with the position and scale normal. And then as each message bubble pops up, we just want to scale it in on each message bubble. So we're animating this first message bubble to start out like normal, and then just zoom in on this message. And then we're going to Control C and Control V those last two keyframes, because now we want to animate it to the next bubble. But we need a bit of space until this animation starts. You can also obviously just move these layers, these text message bubbles, to whatever part in the composition that you want. So I'm gonna start this next bubble a little later, and then scale in a little more on this next message. And so now we can see it zooms in, and then since these 4 keyframes are the exact same, we're not gonna move until this animation starts happening, which is a little too much. and you can keep adjusting these keyframes as much as you need to. So if that doesn't make sense, I'm literally just copying and pasting the last 2 keyframes of every camera motion animation that I put in, because I needed to stay here before going to the next one. So now I just finished this animation, and I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna Control C those last 2 keyframes, and then Control V to paste them again, because then I can start a new animation to go to the next text message bubble. And then I'm just gonna scale it up a little bit since it's a smaller piece of text. And I'm happy to also show you guys how you can actually add a text message bubble that is the start of a video. So then you can go from this text message conversation and transition through one of the texts into a clip or a cinematic. I would do that in this tutorial, but this is already pretty long, so if you guys want to see that, let me know. So just for tutorial's sake, I did 3 text message bubbles here, and let's see what the animation looks like. See, it looks kind of bad, and that's why we have to add some sauce to this. So let's take these first 4 keyframes and click F9 to easy ease them, and then right click the value graph, go into the value graph and right click to go to speed graph, because for here we're going to use the speed graph. Again, you can do this in so many different ways, but this is the way that I usually like to do it. And then we're going to select the right side and just bring it to ease in to the left like this, and hold shift while you bring that to the left so that it doesn't get all funky. And then adjust this left side, and we just want a smooth peak right here. And then I'm going to select the next set of keyframes and click F9 and do a similar graph. So then we have something like this, a very similar graph to our first one. I think it's still a little bit sharp. So you just gotta keep adjusting the speed graph. And then the duration of it. So I'm gonna adjust that a little bit more. And now we have our last set of keyframes. So we can adjust the duration of that. Let's put these a little bit longer and then select those 4. And this is the third bubble's camera motion. So then we can change that a little bit. And let's see what the animation looks like now. And that's looking really good. And then if we wanted to add some shake, we could also just add a little bit of camera shake to make this look good. Damn, this is looking fire. All right, so now we have this. And that's essentially how I do my text bubble animations. So I think this looks really clean, and I hope you guys found this helpful. And if you happen to use this in any of your videos, your montages, definitely link me, because I would love to see your guys' version of this. And if you guys don't feel like doing exactly what I did, you can just download the project file, which is in the description, for $2. But most importantly, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. I love you so much, and stay cozy, stay comfy, and stay hydrated. Peace.